Hello and welcome to our weekly Parsha Shir with the commentary of the Alshich Kodesh. This is the last, the ultimate Parsha in Bereshis. It's the final words of Yaakov Avinu to his children, the blessings that he gives them. I'll remind you that this is the second year we're looking at the Alshich. Last year, I always check that I'm not repeating myself, we're choosing a piece of Alshich that we learned last year, but last year's Shir, I would strongly recommend those, particularly those of a Kabbalistic bent, to have a revisit to that one. It's this strange idea that Yaakov Avinu never died, when the Psukim clearly seem to indicate that he did die. And you'll find, I think, through the eyes of the Alshich, an extraordinarily interesting delving into exactly what that's all about. So let me modestly recommend my share on the Alshich from last year before we actually go to this year. This year, the part I want to look at is the Brachos, of which Yaakov not just gives all of his children, because we won't have time for that, but Yosef's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, or Manasseh and Ephraim, as Manasseh is actually the oldest son. But of course, we say Ephraim and Manasseh, which we'll get to shortly. There is an enormous amount of confusion exactly what a bracha does and what a bracha is. So, as it were, to spoil a joke by telling the punchline first, or to tell you how the story ends before it even begins, I can't withhold myself from making it very clear. A bracha is not magic words. It's not a magic wand. It doesn't create something, as we'll see shortly, because this week's Alshich share is going to be shared by the Alshich and one of my other great inspirational teachers, Sorim Reb Yerucham, Levovitz, the Mashgiach of Mir Yeshiva. Remarkable thought, in depth, same background, same yeshiva background as Rabbi Dessler. In depth, certainly, I would say, different style, but complementary, parallel, and rivals the insights of Rabbi Dessler, which is to say an enormous amount. But let's get straight into what we're talking about, the brachas which Yosef's sons get from Yaakov Avinu. And this, of course, is the bit where Yosef's upset because he assumes that his father has given the bracha, the incorrect bracha, to each of his two sons. He doesn't seem to understand, or he thinks his father doesn't understand who's who. But to go back to the point I wanted to make before, to, as it were, let the cat out of the bag before we even put it in the bag. Oh, that's a terrible sentence. Never mind, too many metaphors there. But the idea is that a bracha is not a magic wand. It doesn't create something new. What a bracha does, as Chaim Volozhin says in Sefer Nefesh Chaim, a bracha is to take that which is there and allow it, through the bracha, to maximize itself, to increase. So bracha, actually, the word borach actually means to increase, to grow. Take what's there and make it grow. But the only one who makes something new is Hashem Yisborach. Yesh mi'ayin, making something that wasn't there before and turning it into something that is there, that's Hashem's prerogative, and only he can do that. But what bracha can do is take what Hashem did want to be there and make it better, make it bigger, make it shinier, make it more successful, make it bigger, make it grow. So that's exactly what a bracha is all about. But let's have it with that, establishing that principle first and getting that out of the way. Let's have a look at the Psukim, and let's see. I'm not going to this week go into the Alshich's questions, because just the ones that are numbered in the Alshich are 24 or 25 on this story we're about to read, the brachas that Yaakov gives Ephraim and Manasseh. And that's far too much, obviously. And incidentally, of course, as those who've been with me over now 2 years of learning Alshich together, you'll know that sometimes his one question is 2 and sometimes even 3. So it would be reasonable to assume that really is something with 35 questions he asks beyond the scope of this share. However, I'll just jump straight into one part of his explanation. And I think the questions which you'll ask will become apparent, and the ones that aren't, I will elaborate on as we go along. Okay, let's just remind ourselves of what's going on. So if you are looking at this with your art scroll Chumash, I always like my little art scroll Chumash here, and it's on page 270, Parshas Vayichi. It's chapter Mem Ches, and we're going to start at Pasuk Ches. Pasuk Ches says, "V'yar Yisrael is b'nei Yosef." Now remember, just the Psukim are telling us that Yaakov is blind. there's a disagreement exactly what it means he's blind. Is he totally blind? Can he see shapes? Is it like a picture at a focus, or is it prophetically blind? We'll see that in just a second. But anyway, it says, V'yar Yisrael es b'nei Yosef, and he sees b'nei Yosef. So his father sees his grandsons. That's Ephraim and Manasseh. V'yamar me'ele, and he says, who are these? Now, this is an extraordinarily strange thing to say. Who are these? Which, of course, if you bear in mind he's a problem with his sight, that makes sense. But Rashi, and the Alshich quotes the exact same medrash that Rashi quotes, says that what he really means is this. Now, here I'm about to give them a blessing. I'm about to take what's there and make it bigger. But I want to make good things bigger. What if there's bad things there? And there is bad things, because this is what Rashi says. And again, this medrash is echoed by the Alshich. Bikash levorcham, he wanted to give them a bracha. And immediately he did so. The Shekhinah, the presence of God, which allowed him to do such things for his brachas to be effective and efficacious, it simply fled from him and departed. Lefi she'osid Yerucham va'ochav l'tzeis me'Ephraim, because part of the lineage that he could see prophetically coming from Ephraim was Yerucham and Ochav, two extremely bad individuals. The Yehu Ubonov, and Yehu Ubonov and Manasseh. And Manasseh's two sons, you have Yehu and his sons. Kings of the Jewish people would be extremely bad. And therefore, at that point, he saw that these terrible people were going to be coming from these two people who were supposed to be getting a blessing. He gets distressed. The Shekhinah leaves him, or maybe it's the other way about. The Shekhinah leaves him and he gets distressed. But without the Shekhinah, he's not able to give the bracha. But he has an insight into the future that from Ephraim and Manasseh are going to come some of the worst individuals in Jewish history. And that's why he's saying, Me'ele, who are these people? And Rashi says, what does that mean? I'll read the Rashi to you. Where did these people come from? How did these people I see that are bad? Where did they come from? Because if they're coming from these two boys, then obviously they're not worthy of having a bracha. And at that point, Rashi says, now let me go back to the Pasuk. V'yar Yisrael b'nei Yosef, v'yom me'ele, v'yom Yosef el Aviv, and El Aviv, he says to his father, Bonahim, they're my sons, asher nosen li Elokim bozeh, which God gave to me bozeh, with this. And what's this? So Rashi says, the bozeh refers to because Yosef Rachamim. Yosef asked for mercy and his father's indulgence on this dramatic moment, and says to him this, and when he did so, then the Ruach HaKodesh returned to him. What was it that he got the indulgence from? What changed? So the Bazeh refers to, says Rashi, the Bazeh, look at this. He showed them the documents, the marriage documents, that would have been given. In other words, his wife had converted to Judaism, the match that he made, and the children that came from that Jewish marriage was a properly constituted Jewish marriage. These children are my children. And that's why it says Bonai. When he says, again, it was Vayar Yisrael, so he sees B'nai Yosef, who are these people? V'yama Yosef el Ovi Bonai. They're my sons. They come from me. As I am a tzaddik, as I am a true Jew, they are as well. That you see, therefore, and he asks his father's indulgence, because in fact, all of the Jewish people, all of the people who are going to get brachas from Yaakov in the future, they're not going to have, all of them are going to have people who are, well, as we know, Jewish history is full of people who are not so good. So therefore, Yehuda, as we're all descended from Yehuda, the same accusation could be laid against him and all of the other sons as well. And that seems to restore the balance. Okay, that's that bit. Now, let's move on to the actual bracha. So, V'yama Yosef al-Avi b'neihem asher nosa l'Hashem Elokim b'zeh, which God, and Elokim is the word that's used here, as the Alshich points out. So Elokim gave these children to me. That's the strict side of judgment, and that these children were worthy to be given to me. So therefore, bring them to me. At that point, the Shekinah is restored. Bring them close to me, and I will bless them. So now he's going to get this blessing. The Ein of Yisrael kovdu mizokin, and his eyes were heavy with age. Lo yochel lirois, he wasn't able to see clearly or whatever, as we said before. And he brought his two sons to him, and then he hugged them and he kissed them. Or he kissed them and he hugged them is the actual order. Israel said to Yosef, I didn't dream of actually I'd see your face again. The next generation too. I'm even seeing your children. Okay. Going to read on to the next passage. So he brings his children in front of their father, his father, their grandfather, and they bow down. And Yosef takes both of them as Ephraim. Ephraim, of course, this is the critical bit of this bracha. He takes Ephraim in his right hand. So if you're watching this on the video, you can see, so in my, I hope you're seeing this as my right hand, because my screen's showing as a left. Okay, that's my right hand. He takes Ephraim in his right hand and Manasseh in his left, because he's facing his father. Now, Manasseh is the oldest son. So that means that Manasseh is going to be facing Yaakov's right hand, the stronger hand. And when he puts his right hand, the implication is that he's going to get a stronger bracha. And then, of course, the left hand, if he's got Ephraim on his right hand, Yosef's right hand, that's going to be in his father's left hand, the weaker bracha. And that seems to make sense because, of course, we know that the Bechor, the firstborn, gets an extra degree of blessing and indeed inheritance of the father. So that seems to make sense. But we know, of course, that Yaakov doesn't go with Yosef's anticipated plan. But let's just stick with the Psukim before we jump into the Alshich and then to Rabbi Yerucham. So it says, so he takes his son Ephraim, his younger son, in his right hand, which is the left hand of Israel. He puts Menashe in his left hand, which is Mimino Yisrael, and the right hand of Israel, and he brings them both in front of his father. And what happens is Israel, Yaakov, takes his right hand, and he puts it on Ephraim. So he takes his right hand and he puts it in Ephraim. So instead of putting his weak hand on Ephraim and his strong hand on Manasseh, the one directly opposite him, he crosses it over and puts his right hand on Ephraim. Let's see, and he's the younger one. Now, Smoilai al Roshi Manasseh, and puts his weaker hand, his left hand, on Manasseh. Kabbalistically, right and left hands are very, very significant. Right and left is very significant. Shkol is Sekel is Yodai. Sekel is Yodai. With intent, he did this. He guided his hands. Manasseh Bechar, because Manasseh was the Bechar. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. Critical. And then he blesses Yosef. I thought he was blessing the sons. So that's one of the questions which the Alshich asks. Why does he bless Yosef? Why does he bless Yosef? So the Alshich answers there, and I'll quickly tell you that bit because we don't have time to, as I go into all. He says, what it meant was, Yaakov is blessing him to say that I want the blessing to come from the fact that Yosef is their father. Yaakov is designing his blessing to come from the fact that Yosef is his father. Now that's going to be critical. When we get to Rabbi Yerucham, we're going to see that's very, very important. Yaakov's focus and the Bracha's focus is the fact that these two boys are the sons of Yosef. So first of all, he blesses Yosef. He connects the blessing, which is about to go on to in just a few words' time, to the sons, is going to be flowing from their relationship with their father, like son, as the saying goes. And Kabbalistically, that's important as well. He blesses Yosef. Hashem, Asher Hishalko Abasai Lefonov. Avram Mitzvah Elokim, Haroy Oisi Mi'oidi Ad Hayom Hazeh. Hashem, who went before my fathers, Abraham from Yaakov, and before me from time I began till now. And then Hamalach Hagoyel Osi Mikol Ra, and the angel who redeemed me from all bad, Hashem's messenger was sent to protect me from Esav and everybody else. Yivarach Hazanar, he should bless the sons, the boys. But Yikra Bahem Shemin, my name should be called on them. Shem Avos, and the name is my father Abraham Yitzchak. But Yidgol Leroy V'Karva Oretz, and they should be established into Yidgol is some that's the word it's the word dag. They should be as numerous as the fish in the sea. So here's a bracha, B'Karva Oretz, in the midst of the land. Okay, that's the bracha. So he wanted a bracha, he gets the bracha. But that's not the only bracha. There are two brachas that he gives them, and there's a little episode in between. So that's the first bracha. The first bracha is that the Malach of God, he should bless the lads, and they should multiply and be very, very great. But then there's a dramatic interruption or interjection of Yosef, who doesn't seem very happy with what's happened. And he says, but Yar Yosef Yosis Ovid Yadiminoi al Rosh Ephraim. And Yosef sees, or Yosef is looking and sees his father is putting his hand out to, Yosef is in the future, is putting his hand out, is about to put his hand out, or will put his hand out, would be a better translation, on the hand, his right hand on the hand of Ephraim. And it's bad in his eyes. And he touches his father's hand to gently direct it to where he thinks it should be, on the hand of Menashe. Me'al Rosh Ephraim, to take it from Ephraim's head, al Rosh Menashe, onto the head of Menashe. Now he's already had the blessing, and he's already had the blessing with the hand of Yaakov on Ephraim. Now he wants to change it, but it's already happened. Seems a bit strange. What's the phrase? Closing the gate after the horses galloped, or something like that. But Yom Yosef and Ovi, Yosef says his father, Lochein Ovi. That's not right, father. Lochein, that's not. Lochein Ovi. That's what let's see how this is why I like to have my R scroll here, so I can argue with them. And Yosef said to his father, not so, father, for this is the first one. Lochein, all right. I'm not going to argue with that one. Lochein Ovi, not thus, if we're really being. Because this one's the first part. Put your yamincha, your right hand, on his head. Okay. Does that mean and say the bracha all over again? No, but he wanted to put his hand on his head as well. And that means both would have had the right hand. And there would therefore be no apparent or appearance of favoritism. Now this all, again, let the cat out of the bag. Why would Yosef be very sensitive to Yaakov appearing to show favoritism to one son over another? Well, that's an obvious question with an obvious answer, because that's exactly what happened. And when he made him the katana to pass him, when he made him the coat of this, that caused all the trouble with the brothers and caused the jealousy. Yaakov's seeming to favor one over the other has already caused him all the trouble and the saga that got him ended up where he is at the moment. So it looks like history repeating itself, and he's not pleased, and he doesn't want that to occur. So at least put your right hand on Menashe's head as well, which seems perfectly reasonable. Wait till we get to the Alshich. But Yamin Oviv, and he refuses. But Yama Yodati b'ni Yodati, I know my son, I know. Now he didn't have a stammer. And as we say when we look at the Alshich all the time, the Alshich is very good Hebrew. There's no repetition. So why does it say twice? I know my son, I know. Gam hu yilam, he'll also be people, but gam hu yigdal, and he'll also be great. But ulam ha'ol kibakotten, yigdal amina, but his younger brother would be greater than him. But zara yiyeh molo hagoyim, and his seed will be meloi hagoyim. Now let's see how our friends in the Article Land translate that one. Younger was from greater, and his offspring shall. And they say his offspring's fame, they put in fame, will fill the nations. All right, we'll leave that for the moment. And he blessed them on that day with his hands in the same position. So he doesn't acquiesce to Yosef's request, he doesn't change, and he continues with a second blessing. And here's the second blessing. through you, or the pattern here that we're establishing, that's how the Jewish people will bless Limor Simcha Elohim Kavram Menashe. So Yerucham Bayamahu, he blesses them on that day, and says, this is how the Jewish people will bless their children. Simcha Elohim Kavram Menashe. Elokim, now before the first bracha, says Hamalach should bless you. Hamalach Hagoy Eloisi. But here it's God himself he's invoking, and not just God, but the Midas Hadin, Elokim. Lemor Yasimcha Elokim Kavram Menashe, but Yosim es Ephraim Lifnei Menashe. And he puts, again, Ephraim, he gives priority, Ephraim before Menashe. Okay, so it's not Menashe and Ephraim, which chronologically you should say, but it's the other way about again. He's stelling, as they say in Yiddish. He is focusing and fixed, almost fixated, and that sounds a bit pejorative. He's fixed on the fact that Ephraim has to have the kadima. He has to have the priority here. Okay, now that's all we need to look at. That's the story. Everybody knows that. I'll keep that open because I might have to refer back to that. I'm not sharing any pages. It makes it easier, particularly for those who are listening to this driving along in their motor cars or whatever. And we'll go and look at the Alshich. The Alshich is, we've got 2 columns to get through. Here it is here, with all my little notes and scribblings in preparing the shear earlier on. And right, so we're now ready to go. So here is what the Alshich says. Interesting, tremendously interesting stuff. And we'll see that the Yosef's concern about Yaakov's favoritism that led to all the disharmony is addressed. Yaakov's addressing that. He's aware of it, and he is not going to repeat. History is not going to repeat itself, and he's not going to allow history to repeat itself. Let me read to you the Alshich. He says, it initially occurred to Yosef that Yaakov would not make both blessings identical, but there would be a specific blessing for each and every one, just like when it comes to the rest of Yaakov's own sons, as opposed to here his grandsons, that each one have their own specific blessing. But in this case, it seems that doesn't occur, because the first blessing that he gives them, they're equal. Hamalach Hagoy L'Simi Kol Ra Yevorech Hasana Arim. It's the same blessing that both get. So there seems to be an equivalence there. But he definitely anticipated that his father would give them their own, as it were, their own signature blessing. So he says, Yosef anticipated that Yaakov would give them their own specific blessing. And indeed, when he sees the hand going there, certainly, to give Ephraim a stronger blessing, more of a blessing perhaps, more encouragement for his gifts to grow, to go back to what we said at the beginning from Yerucham Volozhin, than from Menashe. Because he saw indeed that that is Ephraim, had more gifts, more talents, natural gifts and talents, if you like, more Yosef than did Menashe. The saying that he was more fitted than his brother. And that's why he put his hand on Ephraim. Now this gets tricky. Now it gets tricky. Think about this. Again, if you can see this in the video, here's my right hand here, and here's my left hand here. So I'll be Yosef for the second. So I've now got, who have I got in my right hand? I have got Ephraim in my right hand and Menashe in my left hand. Now, as we understood this, that means I want the stronger hand of Yaakov, the right hand, who will be facing it, is going to be facing Menashe in my left hand. So which hand indicates what Yosef wants? Does this indicate him have my hand, Ephraim in my right hand, that he's the stronger? Or is it the fact that Menashe is my left hand to be in Yaakov's hand to indicate that's where the stronger blessing should go? It's ambiguous, isn't it? Wait, have you thought about that? It's whose right hand is the key right hand here that will determine where Yosef wants the blessings to go? His own, which I guess it should be Ephraim, or Menashe. The Alshich seems to say that by putting his hand on Yosef putting his hand on Ephraim is indeed indicating his right hand on Ephraim is indicating that he is the stronger of the brothers religiously in Ruchnius. So therefore, he doesn't say a thing, right? He's got his hands on his two sons, and at that point there is the blessing that he's going to give, and he doesn't say anything when the right hand goes the other way about, because he does know his son Ephraim is stronger. So he assumes that his father wants to give him his own signature bracha. Ephraim should get his signature bracha. Hence, that's why Yaakov has put his hand there. That makes sense, because each one gets their own bracha. But that's not what he does. The first bracha equalizes. There is no difference. But he says, but as far as in the first part of the bracha, they are equally given, they're given the exact same bracha, and they're equated together, then he should bless the boys. Then they both get the same formula as the Yarbein. Then he doesn't like it. Then that's when Yosef is upset. Why? Because it occurred to him that perhaps what Yaakov thought was by putting my hand on Ephraim, I was leading him to give him the bracha, which is not actually that's not what I want. The bracha has to come from Yaakov for what the boys are. That he wanted. Now again, this is the confusion. Whose right hand is going to be critical here? Yaakov thought that maybe Yaakov, that indeed he wanted him to have the Menashe of the stronger bracha, and he takes therefore in his right hand, that's Yaakov's right hand, a bol, a small Yaakov, which so I guess I don't know about. He'll take in his right hand, take Ephraim to be the left hand of Yaakov. So the stronger bracha will go to Menashe. Right. And that is why, therefore, he would put his right hand on him. No, when he puts his hand thinking it's on the right hand is the stronger one, and that's where the bracha should go. He says, no, I didn't mean my hand to be the determining one, the indicator. It's your hand, right? Your right hand I want this for. He's to get the stronger bracha, right? So when he sees that, I want, and he's equalizing, the brachas are equal, he's trying to say, no, I want them to have their own bracha, and he's the young older brother, so he should get it. He should get that. That's why he's up to your hand, your right hand. Your right hand is the determinant, not my right hand. To which his father turns and says, yes, my son, I know exactly what I'm doing. Your dati. What do I know? What do I know? What two things do I know? And so the Alshich says, I know that he is the firstborn. I know that Menashe is the firstborn. Still, his hand is over on Ephraim's head. Gam Yudati, I also know the future. I know the future. The bracha which I'm giving, the bracha which is going to make their potential grow, I need Ephraim's potential to grow more than Menashe's. I need to give him more bracha. My right hand stronger than the left hand, the weaker, because don't be upset. Don't worry, I'm still giving a nice bracha to Menashe. And that's Al-Kain Hu B'tzad Yamini. That's why you've got him on my right side, Olam. However, other brother, Ephraim, the younger brother, is going to be greater. Yosef Yamina Olav. The one that's in your right hand, Gam Hu Tzarech, all Ezer God, but he's going to need more bracha, more help. Because this word we said that his, I think the Alshich translated as what was it? It's going to be his fame would increase amongst the nations. No, it refers to his offspring, Yeshua. He's going to have to fight with the kings the kings of Canaan to conquer the land of Israel. And therefore, he needs more of his potential to be maximized, realized, and grow in order to be able to pass it on to his descendant, Yeshua. He's going to need it more. He's going to be the next link in the chain. After Moshe passes away, he'll lead the Jewish people, and he's got more to do. That's why he's getting more of a bracha. But tzarech bracha sheyochel keneged goyim rabim atzumin the kibush oretz, because his Yeshua, his grandson, is going to have to fight with mighty kings and mighty forces to claim the land of Israel. And there's another thing here, says the Alshich. B'shum lev al omer ki yosis loshen osiv. When it says that B'yar Yosef Yoshi's Aviv, right, this is Pasuk Yud Zayin, when Yosef saw his father is stretching out his hand, or will stretch out his hand, it's interesting. Bola says Tam al Mashallah Micha Yosef Mi'az. Why didn't he at that point say, before his father's hand's gone on Ephraim's head, on what he would think would be the wrong head for the right hand to be on, why didn't he stop him before he actually put it there? So this is very interesting. So he says, "Who ki akasim atzon bola says Tam al Mashallah Micha Yosef Mi'az." The pasuk itself wants to tell you why he didn't protest. But Yom Kihinei Shlosha Dargas Haga, because there's three elements here. One, Achas Kinei Bayar Yosef Ki Yosef Aviv Shehu Miterem Suma Yamino al Rosh Ephraim. But Yosef saw, before he actually put his hand there, what he was about to do. The Roski Bo Asim Isa al Rosh Ephraim, he was intending to do so. But then it goes on to say, when he saw it, that's when he thought it was wrong. And suddenly afterwards, when it's there, he saw al Rosh, it's there, but he tries to move it. He's not able to do that. His father refuses to move his right hand. And when he sees that he's not willing to do that, as Omer loy kain avi. Now I asked you the question from the Alshich. What's it? Lo kain avi. Lo kain just says that's not right. What's that? Not fit? No, it's not right, my father. So the Alshich says something which is tremendously interesting here. Lo kain avi lahaskir ketamia. It's rhetorical. He's asking this question. Is this not right, Father? It's not right, Father. What's the rhetorical aspect of it? Wasn't this not right? Wasn't this not right before, Dad, Father, when you gave priority to the younger son, me, over the older sons that caused all the jealousy? This is the repeat of history. Lo Kain Avi. Why does he mention his fathers as father? That's obvious. To remind his father of when they were father and son, and he showed priority over a younger son over the other brothers that caused the whole conflict. But Masha Ata Abba, when you were my father, Shasamta Kinas Beni Hatzir, when you caused jealousy between me, the younger son of Ben Achai, and between my brothers, Bekinas Katenas Basim, and because jealous of the little garment that you made me that you didn't make them. So why are you repeating history and making jealousy, or potentially making jealousy between my sons, and giving your right hand and giving the stronger bracha to the younger son? It's happening all over again. Because this one, Menashe, he's the Bechor. So at least put your right hand on him too. Okay, the first part of the bracha is done. You've already done that with your hand on the Ephraim. But now put your hand over onto his hand, right hand over onto Menashe's head as well. So they're equal, so there'll be no jealousy, no demonstration of favoritism. So that it will be balanced. Just put it on the Ephraim, just fine, but no, just for a few seconds, put it in his head as well. So we've checked the box. So therefore now the word Avi is not extra. Now it understands the context that Yosef is hinting at. Now, the Alshich says that really it's not necessary, because Yosef is well aware of this context and well aware of this echo of history, or this echoing the past, I should say. And he says, I know what I'm doing, and it's not. This is different. So let me read to this. Yosef wants to hint to his father that this is a repeat of history. But Yaakov already knows. I know my son. And again, as we said, Yudati. So I know from the past, but I know from the future as well. I know that you're my son. So he says, oh, the thing about me being your father, I know you're my son. Yudati bani. Begam Yudati, Gam Zeh HaBechor. I know that he's the firstborn. But his youngest son will be great. Your youngest son will be greater than Menashe. From himself and from his level of having worked at it on himself. Sorry, Mr. Ali, sorry. The Gemara says, Rosh Yeshiva Shel Yaakov. And the Gemara says, the Medrash says that Ephraim was already the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva which Yaakov, through Yehuda, had already set up in the Jewish area of Mitzrayim in which he inhabited. He was already established as the greatest Talmid Chacham of the family. And since his talents were already recognized and accepted in the family by his brother, then there will be no jealousy. Though conflict was caused by showing favoritism to somebody who the brothers didn't recognize as somebody who deserved favoritism or superiority, as being the greatest, most talented Talmid Chacham of the family. But in this case, that's different. He's already the Rosh Yeshiva. So there will be no jealousy. So the question is, why does Yosef challenge his father and try over his right hand on the wrong, what he sees as the wrong head? Say, my father, Lo Kain Avi, we don't say Avi, we know he's his father, is to remind them of this being a repeated history. And he says, Yudati Bani, I know that history. My son, I'm your dad. You talked about that time. I remember when you were my son. No, we're not making the same mistake again. Interesting. But this is critical to what we're going to be looking at, this idea of the Bracha. The Bracha is he's already got superiority through what he's worked at. This is taking what's there and making it better. But if he's worked on himself to become the better, then I'm just making that, it's a logical progression to take it even further. Another little bit, and then we're going to swap over to Rabbi Yerucham. Olahaf is das Yosef to calm Yosef's concerns. That through his talents, he is being given favoritism. He's being given a favored position, a favored blessing. And no, didn't came up, it wasn't accidental, it knows that it all comes from him. It's a hint that it's not coming from me, it's not my choices, but rather that's the nature of the beast, as it were, of the bracha. Beast is the wrong word. That's the nature of a bracha. It has to go with the person who's the recipient of the bracha. Each bracha is the person's bracha. Now with that, we pause and I close the Alshich and take us to Rabbi Yerucham. Now Rabbi Yerucham, in Das Chochmah und Musar, it's a 3-volume work in case you've never come across it. Absolutely fabulous. Difficult. I have to say, I learned it with my chavrusa, Rav Naftali Rakov, Shlita. He's an outstanding Talmid Chacham, and he's the son of my Rov, Rabbi Rakov, the Rov of Gate said. We learn this every week together in Bensonhurst, in Beis Talmud, which is a yeshiva which descended from Rabbi Yerucham's descendants. He himself was incidentally married to a great-granddaughter of Rabbi Yerucham. And we laugh so often because his Musa, as we say, it's like learning a Gemara. It's like learning Tosfos in the Gemara. It's you have to work at this, but this is not so difficult. Very interesting. I won't keep you too much longer in this, especially as I have to run away and do another Shabbaton in New Jersey, which will take me 2.5 hours to get there. So let me, said he quickly looking at the clock. Let me just read to you what he has to say. Good. In the Pasuk, in Bereshis Memtes, so a little later on in our parsha, says Rashi says, "Ish asher kiberkosai." When Yaakov gives each one according to their blessing, brocha hasida labo al kol echad beechad. Says Rashi, means the brocha that was going to come for each and every one of them. I've already discussed, says Rabbi Yerucham, in many other places, the idea or the concept of Yaakov giving a blessing to his children. And Birchas called Echad ve'Echad Hoisa Kefi HaRoilo. Well, the bracha that they got was perfectly matched to who they were. It was a signature bracha. Lefi Tivoi Imidosai, according to their teva and their midos. Now, that means to say that the bracha that each one gets cannot, by definition, fit somebody else. This is discussed in the Talmud, and it says just like no two faces are the same, no two neshamas are the same. Rabbi Dessa talks about that goes up to make you or I as an individual is our gifts, our talents, our mazel, and all the experiences of our life, which of course is unique to every single one of us, and therefore we are unique, and therefore the bracha has to be unique to us as well. So that's obviously going to be the case in the bracha as he gives his sons. Okay, so therefore he says, and therefore when Yosef wants the bracha of the Bechor to go to Menashe, who is the firstborn and should get it, Eshiva Yudati b'ni Yudati, as we've just been talking about. I know what I'm doing. But his brother Ephraim will be greater than him. Well, the Chura Matshuva, how does that help? Yosef wanted to get the bracha of the firstborn. He's still the firstborn. Still give the firstborn bracha to the firstborn. Listen to this. But it was not within the ability of Yaakov to change the brachas at all. The bracha that he gave to Ephraim is because that's Ephraim's bracha that fitted him. Like the clothes that fit one person that will not fit somebody else. There were different shapes, different dimensions. One's taller and smaller, one's thinner, fatter. It's exactly for him. And if I gave the wrong bracha, it won't fit. It will be hanging off him and fall off him, or it won't go on to become part of him in the first place. It just won't fit. That's the important thing he says. And so he gives a beautiful example of this, and you'll know this in Malachim. So let me read a little bit more of this. Yaakov, because a bracha does not create something new, as we said at the beginning. A bracha merely takes what's there and makes it grow and makes it bigger and better. But if it's not there already, it's not going to work. And there's many psukim that talk about that. Ish, we call echad be'echad. Ish asher kibrachosai barachosai, as the pasuk says, each one according to their bracha, he blessed them. He blessed them with their bracha, with the only bracha he could give them, because the bracha is appropriate to what they are, to make what they are grow bigger. The Kamasha Kos of Rashi, brachas asida labo al kol echad be'echad, as we said from Rashi. But Tzorach Lahevin, Zeh begeder pachashemen shebe Elisha. Elisha, in the story, you'll find this in Malachim Beis and Dalet. Elisha was petitioned by a woman whose two sons were going to be taken in indentured labor because there was debt owed. And she says, my son was my husband who passed away was training to become one of the B'nai Nevi'im, training to become a Navi. He died. There's no money in the house. He says, what do you have in the house? And she said, I've got nothing. And the house is one tiny little container of oil. He said, go and ask all your neighbors to bring every container they possibly have and fill your house with those. Then he goes in and gives her a bracha to pour from this little container of oil, and it keeps pouring until every single container is filled, and there's no more containers in the street, and then it stops flowing. And they said, now sell that oil, and that will pay the debt, so that your sons are not taken away indentured laborers to pay off that debt. But notice what he did. He didn't say abracadabra and fill the house with oil. There had to be oil there already, and it just created much more of what was already there. That's how Bracha works, just like Rav Chaim Volozhin said. And really what the Alshich is saying as well in the explanation of Yaakov. I've got to give him this Bracha. He's already the Rosh Hashiva. He's already greater, and he's going to need I've got to give him a Baruch to make what's already there much bigger to pass through to Yeshua, because he's got a bigger job to do. Okay, fine. Good. Therefore, if we jump a little bit further on, the Rabbi Yerucham says a tremendously interesting thing. When it comes to, we all know the story of the Yaakov's four wives, and how it seems to be that Leah is not as favored as Rachel is, and so therefore, when she has her son, who is called Yehuda, she says, "Now my husband will love me even more," and she gave a bracha that and she anticipated that the name that it chose is called Yehuda, because when he was born, she gave Haidah to Hashem Yisborach. The Haidah was that this special bracha of having, now Yehuda is Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda is the fourth son. There are four wives of Yaakov. They all prophetesses. They know that Yaakov is going to have 12 sons. So logically speaking, each and every one could anticipate that they would be the mother of three, and that would make sense. However, when Leah gets a fourth son, then she gives Haidah, special thanks, special gratitude to he who gave her an extra blessing of a son, and she called his name Yehuda. Yehuda. Because Yehuda comes from the word Haidah, to give thanks, to recognize where the source of blessing comes from. It's a nice name, Yehuda. It's mine. So it's a great name. The interesting thing is that, of course, Yehuda is the royal household of the Jewish people. The kings, the Mashiach, comes from Yehuda. What did Yehuda do that, as it were, merited that would become his role in the Jewish people? And the answer is, in the confrontation with his daughter-in-law, who was about to be executed, what was assumed to be a pregnancy, twins in the end, that was illegitimate and the result of adultery. She confronts her father-in-law in a subtle way, so he's not embarrassed, and says, the person who's the father of my children, or child, is the owner of the belt and the signet ring and the staff that he had given to her, thinking in payment, thinking she was a prostitute. A very complicated story, that. The Alshich is very brilliant in that. I can't remember if we did that last year. Then he's the father of the child. And he turns around and said, Sod Kohimeni. He admitted it, he recognized it, and took responsibility for it and possession of it. And as a consequence of that, then he was fitting to become the king of the Jewish people. He's willing to admit his own frailties and flaws, and when he gets help, it doesn't come from him, it was from somebody else. So that's why Yehuda gets to be the king of produce the kings of the Jewish people. That character, that quality, that character trait. But as Rabbi Yerucham says here, but what did he do? What did he do? He just inherited a trait from his mother. She called him Yehuda because she recognized that this extra blessing came from Hashem. And so all therefore he did was to inherit a character trait from his mother that made it easier for him to turn around and say to, in front of, incidentally, his father and grandfather, rather embarrassing, there, Yaakov and Yitzchak, that who were watching this whole thing, that indeed he was the father of the child, and that he thought she was a prostitute, etc. Not an easy thing to do. But therefore he got this incredible quality from his mother, and that is essential for Jewish kings, because as they say, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. To be a king of the Jewish people is essential that you are somebody who is freed of ego, and if you're willing to say, I got this from somebody else, then you're free from ego. He's got that quality. But what did he do? All we're telling us is that he was so great because he inherited a quality from his mother, But what did he do to become a Jewish king? And the answer, says Rabbi Yerucham, and this is fundamental, we see from this that the critical way forward for a Jew to grow is to simply take the qualities which they have, the qualities which are there, and grow them, and everything else will fall into place. Just that the bracha that Ephraim has takes its qualities and grows them, everything else will fall into place. The bracha that Yaakov gives to all of his children is kibbur chosam, the bracha that was theirs already, their personality, their spiritual identity, all of that, all their talents, take it and make it grow. And here he quotes Rabbeinu Yonah. And Rabbeinu Yonah says, I read this bit, called Adam ba'adam yishlei malas miyuchedes, she'ena etzlei beteva. B'tachlis atayv. Each and every single person has a core Jewish talent, gift, spiritual gift, affinity, which is their defining character trait. Which is something which nobody else can. That's your signature quality or qualification almost. Rabbi Yerucham goes on to quote Rabbeinu Yonah. This is what Rabbeinu Yonah talks about when he quotes the Gemara in Brachas Davov, when it says that somebody who always pays a place for his place in shul, costs about $400, whatever it is, $300 a year to have your own place in shul. Anybody who pays that, then they will say, I'll read this to you, somebody who, as it were, secures his place in shul. Then Elokai Avram Be'ezroi Geshmeis, Hashem will help him, and when he passes away eventually, Omrim will say, Hi Chosid, he was a Chosid, Hi Onav, a humble man, he was one of the Talmidim of Avram Avinu. Well, the obvious question is, just because you paid your shul dues, then that's sufficient to get such a luxurious praise. Again, he's a chosid, he's an onav, chosid, a saintly man, an onav, a humble man, one of Avram Avinu's Talmidim, just because he paid $300 a year. So the answer is like this. It's very, very important to hear. It's one of my favorite things to say over, by the way. I usually give the following motion. My late wife, Alshich, on one day, I have always, incidentally, since I was a teenager, worn the exact same clothing because I'm extremely boring. I don't mean the exact same garment, but the exact same clothing. And I'm more or less wearing it now. A navy blue jacket, tie, obviously, white shirt, of course. What do they call us? We Haredi Jews, we're called penguins, aren't we? That's black and white. Okay. Anyway, so I'm sort of like a navy blue penguin. Anyway, so basically, blue pants, black shoes, etc. Now, if you live in the UK, as I used to, then this all can be acquired from a store called Marks and Spencer's, which is creates a warm, fuzzy feeling in the bosom of any British person. Maybe Americans have the same sort of feeling about Macy's, I'm not sure, but it's the department store. So as I've been wearing the same things all my life, yeshiva, etc. And one day I walked into the kitchen and my late wife, Alshich, Joy Alshich, said to me, "Your jacket's looking a bit, shabby. I think you need to get a new one." I said, okay. So I got into the car and drove the 25 minutes from my house to Manchester city centre to Marks and Spencer's. And I went and I tried on the new blazer and jacket. It was a blazer, actually. It had 2 gold buttons. And just like this one. Bought it, went home, tried it on, looked at me. There's a mirror in the hallway, looked smart, went into the kitchen. My late wife is still there. I said, "What do you think?" Ridiculous question. What I think is the exact same as the last one, only it's new. I'd been wearing them my whole life. She said, "Yeah, nice, same as usual." And fine. So I went out and I looked in the mirror again and I saw this new jacket. And indeed, it looked pretty smart. And then I noticed or as we British people would say, trousers, or in America, my pants. Now, there was nothing wrong with the pants before I bought the jacket. They were perfectly okay. But now, in contrast and comparison to the brand new jacket, the pants looked a bit, no way. They would not pass muster. So I went back into the car, drove back to Marks and Spencer's and decided to get a new pair of pants as well, new pair of trousers. Tried them on, came out of the fitting room, and my new jacket and the pants. Now we're looking smart. But look at that. Look at that shirt. Can you wear a shirt like that with a brand new jacket and a brand new pair of pants? Absolutely not. So I decided to buy a shirt or 6. And then, of course, if I'm going to get myself a new shirt, I need a couple of ties, 12, and buy some new ties. Actually, Marks and Spencer's are not great for ties, but I bought a few. And then I thought I might as well get some new underwear while I'm here, some new socks. In fact, you can get everything that the modern yeshiva bocher or Grady Jew could possibly want Marks and Spencer's except CC's. That's the only thing you can't get. And so, shoes. Did I forget to mention shoes? Fine. Came back home with a whole new wardrobe, which I sneaked upstairs because I was scared of my wife. And that was that. That's exactly what it's saying here. If somebody is born with a character trait, you focus on that. What did Yehuda do that made him worthy of being a king? All he did was inherit a character trait from his mother, but he took that. He made it his special character trait. That was his jacket. The jacket he got from his mother. And then after that, that showed up that the pants needed work. He needed replacing. He would work in them, get new pants, and then the shirt, etc., etc. The diamond in his crown that shone, the stone that spiegeled, that was humility. Hoidah. That would be the one that would show that the other stones in the crown are dull and need polishing. And then he move on to the next one and the next one. And that's what this is saying here. Somebody who always secures for himself a place in shul, he pays his shul, contributions every year, is making a very important and sensible analysis of himself. I like davening. Shul, prayer is my thing. That's my basic nature. But when that's your basic nature, and one day you go to a shir and you hear that Hashem hates one type of human being more than anybody else, and that's a Baal Gaiva, somebody with an ego. He doesn't even pick up the phone when a Baal Gaiva phones him, when a Baal Gaiva davens, because, as Hashem says, we can't coexist in the world. Somebody who thinks you're the same as me, you can't coexist in the world. So when the person who loves davening suddenly hears that, and davening's his jacket, that God doesn't like somebody who's got an ego problem, he'll start working in humility and polish that stone. Now he's got a pair of pants to match the jacket. And then there's something else, and something else. Eventually the crown, all the stones are shining, or the whole new garments there. We're back to garments that fit you. But you get the garment, the main garment that fits you, and then you work your way out from that. But a bracha is that which comes from the person. As the Alshich says, that Ephraim and Manasseh are true great brothers, but Ephraim has already polished his diamond to a very great degree. And we need that. He needs an extra input in order to make the rest of them grow. It's what's already there. He is the son of Yosef, and so is Manasseh, but one who's got this unique role to play in the same way as Yehuda had a unique role to play, and we all have a unique role to play. So the bracha that I can give you, says Yaakov, is your bracha. Oh, Yosef, you want me to give him Ephraim's bracha? It won't work. It's like the jacket that's too small, you won't get on, or too big, it'll fall off you. The bracha has to be unique to the person. But Rabbi Yerucham's insight is more exciting. That the practical application of this concept from the Alshich is find out what your character trait is, who and what you really are, and grow that, polish it. And then when you find that the other bits of you are a little bit dull or really covered in all sorts of schmutz, then that gives you the incentive to clean them off, because you want it to match that beautiful jacket that comes to you naturally. Wish you all a very good Shabbos. Look forward to learning the Alshich with you next week.